the news reports are that Texas and Oklahoma are joining the SEC. In my opinion, I think it is already a done deal. It is basically a rubber stamp. The league must now go through the optics of voting. But I think it is pretty much a done deal. This story was originally broke by the Houston Chronicle during SEC Media Day. Whether it was coincidental or highly calculated, it just happened to be leaked on the day where Texas A&M was going to the podium. Texas A&M and Texas, if you know anything about the two schools, hate each other. Texas A&M would not want Texas in the league. I think this was calculated. This was further confirmed when Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, released a statement. In the statement, of course, he went through the bullshit of these are great academic institutions, which Vanderbilt is, and Vanderbilt doesn't bring in TV money, but it is what it is. As the leader of the SEC, it should not be his interest about academics. It should not be his interest about the kids. He just cares about the TV money, which I understand. He's in a business. The whole point of a business is to make money. And then he further says something that's more interesting. He says that they will join the league in 2025, which I don't think would be good for anybody. Think about this. If you're going to sell your home, you're not going to wait 4 years to move. You're going to move ASAP after you get the money from selling your home. It wouldn't be good for the SEC because all they would have to do is simply wait for the inevitable to happen. The faster they can get these two teams in and get more adjusted would be better for everyone. For the longest time, when Texas A&M and Missouri joined the SEC, I had trouble viewing them as SEC teams. But now, since they've been in the league for so long, I just tend to look at them as SEC teams. Your brain gets used to that after a while. But the reason it would be bad for Texas and Oklahoma is because they would be in a league where they're not wanted. Why would you, if you were divorced, why would you go to a Thanksgiving dinner for the other side of the family, which you just divorced their daughter or husband? That's what it's like. They would be public enemies number one. Both of them would. They would be booed, hated because they are destroying the Big 12. It wouldn't be good for anybody. What I think is it's a done deal. The SEC just has to go through the optics of voting to put them into the league. I think it's a done deal. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think Greg Sankey is going to sell it based on the premise of an expanded playoff. He's going to tell teams like Georgia, and if Tennessee can get back in the next couple of years, you got to realize Tennessee's been complete garbage, but they're still 11th all-time in win percentage. They're still a huge draw. They're still a big brand in college football. They can tell teams that they're going to expand the playoff. In this current system of only 4 teams, it's always Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Alabama. It's the same teams every damn year, and it gets old. I think Greg Sankey is going to go to a team like Tennessee and Georgia and say, look, if you expand the league, then the SEC is going to have more teams in the playoff. And a 10-2 team that loses a close game to an Oklahoma and an Alabama versus an undefeated team from the Conference USA like Cincinnati has a better chance of making the playoffs. I think the only 2 teams that would vote against it are Missouri and Texas A&M. But let's get to some of the facts here. According to the USA Today article, which I was reading, ESPN and ABC, which is a conglomerate of Disney, is going to pay the SEC $300 million annually. This is compared to the 55 million that they were making from CBS. What you got to realize is the biggest revenue for these leagues and the schools themselves is TV money. The advertisers pay top dollar for the big games. Even though Texas has been mediocre at best, they're still the leading team in terms of revenue. The last numbers I could find was 2018 to 2019. Texas led the nation in revenue with $156 million. Oklahoma was eighth with $94.8 million. Speaking of TV ratings, the Big 12's highest TV ratings were games that involved Oklahoma and Texas. You look at how much revenue these teams create, you look at how much they can get advertisers and how much the SEC is going to make on TV money. That is the whole reason that they want Texas and Oklahoma to join the league. Now, according to some of the sources that I've been looking into, it was originally the ACC, the Atlantic Coastal Conference, that reached out to Texas and Oklahoma. Basically, in layman's terms, Texas and Oklahoma said thanks, but no thanks. We want to talk to the SEC. That is the business point of view. Now, I don't blame Texas and Oklahoma for wanting to join the SEC. Why wouldn't they? And I don't blame the SEC for wanting to get these two teams. If they don't go to the SEC for some reason, they're going to go to another conference. So why not get them? But looking at it from a fan's point of view, as you know, I'm a diehard Tennessee fan. I don't like this, and here's why. The whole point of conferences is regions. The whole reason we have an SEC and Tennessee isn't playing Michigan, Tennessee isn't playing Oregon on a regular basis is because of the distance. One of my favorite things every year, especially in basketball, is when Tennessee plays Kentucky. It is the battle of the borders. Tennessee to Lexington, if you want to drive there, I drive through there to see my brother who lives in Kentucky, is 2 hours and 46 minutes away from Knoxville. Athens, Georgia, home of the Georgia Bulldogs in Kirby Dome, is 4 hours and 8 minutes away. Knoxville to Gainesville is 7 hours, 59 minutes away. All of these schools, some of these schools, you can make a day trip going to these games. You could just say, we're going to go drive up and drive home. And then to Florida, you could say, we're going to make a trip out of it. On the other hand, Norman, Oklahoma, which is where the Sooners play, is 12 hours and 57 minutes away. I don't know about you, but I would be exhausted after riding or driving for that long. And by the time I got to the game, I'd be spent. Knoxville to Austin is 15 hours and 44 minutes away. It's like, that's not a regional team. Georgia, Florida, they're all close in proximity. Kentucky, Vanderbilt, they're all close in proximity to one another. And you have that history. Even though Vanderbilt has been garbage, I hate Vanderbilt. I hate Alabama. It's just that natural regional hatred. Just like West Virginia and Virginia Tech hate one another because during the Battle of the States, West Virginia broke off from Virginia because they didn't want to join the Confederacy. And you have that long pattern of hatred from grandpa to grandpa to grandpa passed down to yourself. My grandpa didn't hate anybody. I never heard him say he hated anybody, but he hated Alabama and he hated Florida. And in basketball, he hated Kentucky. And that hatred has been passed down. When I see Kentucky in a basketball game, I always root against them. When I see Florida, when I see Alabama, I hate them. And it galvanizes me into wanting to watch the game. But Texas and Oklahoma, I have no history. I have no connection and really not a lot of interest in it. Don't get me wrong, Tennessee and Oklahoma, I'll watch the game. But beating Florida or Alabama, to me, even if Florida and Alabama are not in the top 10, is a lot bigger than beating Oklahoma, who would be in the top 10. Another problem you get into with these big conferences is you don't play these teams. Texas A&M has been in the SEC since 2011. They have only played Tennessee twice, and they've only been to Knoxville once. It's like they're not even in the conference. They're not even playing one another. If you get too many damn teams, if you have 20 teams, I think it's going to be 20 teams. That's also another thing I think is going to happen. Why not? Why not add Oklahoma State? Why not add Virginia Tech? Why not add West Virginia? I mean, why not, right? Have 20 team conferences. And that means that if you continue and you have divisions, it depends how they're going to set this up. If you have divisions, the East and the West, that means if Oklahoma is in the West, they might only play Tennessee twice in 10 years. That's not really a conference team. You don't need this many damn teams in one conference, in my opinion. But the good part about this is you'll have better matchups. Think about this. When Tennessee plays Furman, do you think it's really going to excite a lot of fans? When Georgia plays Kentucky, do you think that's an exciting matchup? As much as I don't like the idea of Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, I can admit Tennessee versus Texas, not just in football, but also in baseball and basketball, is going to be more exciting. And that's the thing. The good thing is we're going to have better matchups. That's one of the few positives. But on the other hand, rather, these teams will rarely play each other. But if you go to a conference only schedule, then it's going to sort of, to me, and this is from a fan's point of view, I can see it from the business point of view, I can see it from the school's point of view, I can see it from all points of view. But I'm looking at this through the lens of a fan now. I'm actually the game I'm looking the most forward to this coming football season is Tennessee and Pittsburgh. You know why? They never play each other and they're comparable. Pittsburgh was 6-6 last year. The last time Tennessee played Pittsburgh was in 1983. I love those interconference matchups. It'll be Tennessee's first game to prove whether they are a better product than they were last year. We'll get to see good quarterback play against a decent team like Pittsburgh. I'm looking forward to that game. The problem is when you say, oh, we're only going to play conference games, then you're not going to have a Tennessee and a Pittsburgh. You're not going to have, and this is going to be one of the best games of the year. I hate Georgia and Clemson, but hell, I'll be there salivating at the mouth when they're playing. The opening SEC game is going to be Clemson and Georgia. That's a hell of a game. And you also got to see Georgia and Notre Dame. If we have two big conferences with 20 teams, you're not going to get to see those games anymore. But on the other hand, you won't have to watch Tennessee versus Furman or Georgia versus Southeast Missouri School of the Blind. That's another positive. In conclusion, I think it is a done deal due to the TV money, the revenue, and the money. That's all it's about when it comes to the sport anymore. I think it's a done deal. The question is now, is the SEC going to add more teams? And if they add more teams, who are those teams going to be? That is the question. The question isn't, is Texas and Oklahoma going to play in the SEC? The question is, how soon are they going to get in the league? And how soon is Greg Sankey going to get his TV money?